She left like she had everything figured out. She didn't. She walked out with the confidence of someone who had already built the next chapter before she finished the current one. She had someone waiting. She had a plan. She had the narrative already written in her head. The story where leaving you was the brave thing, the necessary thing, the thing she needed to do for herself. And you were left in the wreckage of something you built together, trying to understand how a person you trusted. But completely could dismantle everything without flinching. But here's what she never told you. What she'll never admit out loud to anyone who might relay it back to you. The chapter she ran toward, it didn't read the way she wrote it in her head. You're healing in public while she seems to be thriving. But appearances are the last thing that tell the truth. Right now, you're probably doing something deeply unfair to yourself. You're comparing your insides to her outsides. You're sitting with the full weight of what happened, the grief, the confusion, the identity crisis of suddenly being a person whose marriage ended because of betrayal while watching her social media or hearing through mutual friends, or just imagining her living some uncomplicated new life with whoever she left you for. And that comparison is destroying you because it's not a fair comparison. It's not even a real one. What you see of her life right now is a performance, conscious or not. The highlight reel of someone who needs to believe and needs everyone else to believe that she made the right choice, that she's fine, that things worked out, that the story ends well for her. But psychology doesn't care about the story she's telling. Psychology only cares about what's actually happening underneath it. And what's happening underneath it, what she will never sit across from you and admit, is a great deal more complicated and a great deal less triumphant than the performance suggests. The relationship she ran to is built on a broken foundation. Let's start here, because this is the truth that reshapes everything else. The person she left you for the one she was seeing while you were still building a life together met her under very specific, very artificial conditions. He knew her when she was still partially yours. He got the version of her that was running on the adrenaline of secrecy and the relief of feeling desired outside a struggling relationship. That version of her. When he fell for, the one she was during the affair doesn't fully exist in ordinary daylight. It was a character created by circumstances, by the high of something forbidden, by the contrast with whatever was painful in your marriage. Now those circumstances are gone. Now there is no secrecy, no contrast, no adrenaline. There is just two people in a real relationship with all the ordinary weight that real relationships carry: bills, disagreements, bad days, the gradual revelation of each. So there's actual selves rather than the curated selves of an affair. And what almost every psychological study on post-affair relationships confirms is this. The majority of relationships that begin as affairs do not survive the transition into ordinary life. The foundation they were built on, excitement, escape, forbidden desire, is not a foundation that holds ordinary life's weight. She knows this now, even if she won't say it. She feels the gap between what she imagined and what she's actually living. And that gap is its own quiet punishment, too. The guilt doesn't go away, it just changes shape. Here's something about guilt that most people don't understand. It doesn't disappear when the decision that created it is finalized. It doesn't go away because you followed through on something. In many cases, it intensifies because now it has nowhere left to hide. During the affair, guilt was managed by compartmentalization, by keeping two lives separate, by telling herself a story. Which leaving was inevitable, necessary, already decided, so the betrayal felt less like a choice and more like a foregone conclusion. But after the divorce, the compartmentalization collapses. The story runs out of road. And what remains is the plain, unvarnished reality of what she did to you, to the relationship, to the vows, to the version of herself she used to be. She doesn't talk about this guilt. She might not even consciously acknowledge it, but it lives in her body, in the 3 a.m., when the performance goes offline and the real assessment begins, in the way she reacts when someone asks about her first marriage, in the discomfort she feels when she's around people who knew both of you. Guilt that isn't processed becomes something else over time. It becomes irritability or depression or an overcompensation in the new relationship that eventually creates its own strain. The emotional debt doesn't get erased. It gets restructured. 3, she lost more than she gained. But even if the math looks different from the outside when she left, she gained the new person, the new life, the narrative of a woman who chose herself. But look honestly at what she lost. She lost the man who knew her completely, every embarrassing detail, every fear, every version of herself she'd been over the years. There is a specific intimacy that only comes from time, from someone who was there for the accumulating chapters of your life. That intimacy cannot be replicated quickly. It takes years to build, and it vanishes in a decision. She lost the trust of people who loved her, friends who have quietly recalibrated their view of her, family members who are more careful around her now. People who once thought they knew what kind of person she was, and now hold that assessment less certainly. She lost her own self-concept. However she thought of herself before as a loyal person, a trustworthy person, someone with integrity, that self-concept took a hit that required either genuine reckoning or elaborate justification to survive. Most people choose the justification, but justification is exhausting to maintain. And she lost you. Whatever problems existed in the marriage, however real her unhappiness was, she lost the person who chose her, built with her, showed up for her in the ordinary daily ways that constitute a real life together. She may not feel all of this consciously, but it lives in her somewhere. And it will surface eventually in therapy in a quiet moment of honesty in a conversation she has with someone trusted years from now. The new relationship carries the shadow of how it began. This is the specific, quiet punishment that she lives with inside the new relationship and almost never discusses openly. He knows how she became available. He knows, because he was part of it, that she was capable of the deception. And on some level, even if he never voices it, even if he consciously tells himself it doesn't matter, he carries that. But knowledge, it shows up in how much he trusts her when she's late. In the moment of doubt that crosses his mind when she's on her phone. In the awareness, living quietly in the back of every fight, that he is with a person who has a demonstrated history of choosing exit over address. And she knows he knows. That awareness of being permanently slightly suspect in the eyes of the person she chose is its own particular weight. She cannot fully relax into being trusted because she is aware of the specific reason not to be fully trusted. And relationships where one person cannot fully relax into being trusted are relationships under constant low-level strain. Her children, if you have them, see more than she realizes. If there are children involved, this dimension deserves its own honest attention. Children are extraordinary emotional instruments. They feel the truth of situations long before they have language for it. And even if she has managed the narrative carefully, even if the version they've been given is the most palatable possible framing, they register the underlying reality at a level that bypasses words. They register the awkwardness of divided loyalties. They register the change in their father, the grief, the rebuilding, the person he is becoming. They register the gap between the story they're being told and the emotional texture of what they're living. And over time, not immediately, but over the years that follow, their understanding of what happened but deepens. Their assessments of the people involved become more adult, more nuanced, more honest. She lives with the knowledge that those assessments are developing in her children, that the version of events she has presented will eventually be placed against what they come to understand as adults, that her relationship with them and their respect for her is partly contingent on that reckoning going in her favor. That is not a comfortable thing to carry. The version of herself she left behind doesn't come back. This is perhaps the deepest loss and the one she is least equipped to articulate. She left a marriage, but she also left a version of herself. The person she was as your wife, her identity within that relationship, the daily rhythms of who she was when she was yours, that person no longer exists in the same way. And the replacement, the person she is now in the new life, was built partly on a foundation of having destroyed something. That's a particular kind of internal architecture to live inside. It requires constant justification to maintain its stability. The woman she is after the divorce is someone who knows she is capable of profound betrayal. She has to integrate that knowledge into her self-concept somehow. Some people do that through genuine reckoning and growth. Most do it through justification and narrative management, but neither path is as clean or as free as the outside presentation suggests. The knowledge of what she did is permanent, but it rewrites her understanding of herself in ways that don't fully disappear. 7. What happens to you and why it matters more than what happens to her? Here's the pivot that this entire video has been building toward. You came here wanting to understand what happened to her, what she's experiencing, whether she's suffering, whether justice is being served somewhere you can't see it. And those are human questions. Completely understandable ones, but here's the truth. What happens to her after divorce is not the story that matters most right now. The story that matters, the one that actually has the power to change your life, is what happens to you. Because men who survive betrayal and rebuild fully don't do it by watching their ex-wife's life for signs of consequence. They do it by redirecting that energy, every bit of it, toward the architecture of their own next chapter. The grief is real. Allow it. The anger is valid. Feel it fully. The confusion of who you are now that you're, but no longer who you were in that marriage, sit with it honestly. And then when you're ready, not before begin. Begin the version of yourself that exists on the other side of this. The one who knows things about love and loyalty and his own capacity for resilience that he couldn't have known before this broke him open. And leaving first is not the same as winning. Winning would have been building something real. Winning would have been doing the hard work of honesty with herself, with you, with the marriage, instead of the easier work of escape. What she has now is not the life she imagined when she made the choice that destroyed yours. It's a real life with real weight, carrying the full consequence of how it began. And what you have right now in this painful rebuilding, not yet finished chapter is something she doesn't. You have your integrity. You have your honesty. You have the knowledge that when things were hard, you didn't betray the person who trusted you. But not nothing. That's everything. Build on it. If this video reached you in a place you haven't been able to put into words, subscribe. Every week on this channel, we go into the honest, sometimes uncomfortable, always real psychology of betrayal, healing, and what it actually takes to rebuild yourself after someone breaks what you built together. You are not alone in this. And the chapter you write from here is yours entirely.